Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scream Scene. This is the horror movie podcast where we watch every horror movie ever made in chronological order, and then we rank them from best to worst. My name's Ben.
And I'm Sarah.
Thank you so much for listening to us today. Sarah, how are you doing?
Overall, pretty good. We are about halfway through August for when we are recording this, and unfortunately, because I was sick for a lot of June and July, I feel like I've missed a lot of the summer. So that kind of sucks. So I'm grappling with a little bit of I wouldn't really call it grief. Fear of missing out, I think is more accurate. Yeah. How are you doing?
So I didn't sleep well the night before we were recording this, at all. And then I kind of slept through the day the next day, and now we're recording this at a weird time and on a weird day because of that. And so it's late in the evening, but I don't think it is because my circadian rhythm's all off and I'm feeling weird. And yeah.
Well, let's feel weird together.
Okay.
Listeners, I want you to look around you, find the closest person, hold hands with them. If they're listening to this podcast or not, I want you to do this, and I want you to go, let's be weird together.
Let's be weird together.
So, Ben, as we be weird together, what are we watching today?
Today, Sarah, we are watching an Italian horror film titled LYCANTHROPUS, or as it's better known in English-speaking countries, Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory.
These two titles give two very different vibes of what to expect from this movie.
Yeah, definitely. I suspect there's a strong case of exploitation going on in the American release and its title and how it presents the film. I do know that right off the bat, there's an inaccuracy in that English title because our setting is not so much when I say girls' dormitory, what do you think?
I think, honestly, probably a little bit of prison kind of situation, but definitely more teen girls, like a juvenile facility or a, what is the word for when rich parents boarding school?
Okay, that was an interesting mix of thoughts. You definitely
That's what my brain puts out, Ben.
You definitely went more correct than I thought you were going to. So I think a lot of people hear girls' dorm and they're going to think boarding school, or they're going to think university. They're going to think students. And here we're dealing with what would be more accurately called a reformatory. Oh. So that kind of prison, juvenile delinquency kind of thing that you were thinking of. So
I'm just very smart.
I guess you're just correct is what's going on. So this movie was written by Ernesto Gastaldi, and he was the writer of L'amante del vampiro. That's The Vampire and the Ballerina.
Also very exploitation feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gastaldi's been described by film historian Tim Lucas as the first Italian screenwriter to specialize in horror and thriller films.
Okay.
Gastaldi's early influences for these horror films included the crime novels of Edgar Wallace. That's films that we've done some Edgar Wallace adaptations in the past. You should be thinking Door with Seven Locks kind of stuff.
Yeah, they were more mysteries, dime novel mysteries that you pick up on at the airport.
Exactly. And Edgar Wallace, his style of books, these kind of crime thriller conspiracy books, were always really popular in Germany. So there was a whole bunch of these German crime films made throughout the 60s that had kind of an influence from these British Edgar Wallace novels. I think he was more popular in Germany than he ever was in Britain. And then these German crime films kind of influenced Italian horror thriller films, and that kind of eventually gets us into Giallo territory.
Sure, yeah.
But for now, we're still kind of like also aping Hammer and Universal. And so eventually, like, Giallo is going to be kind of much more like the forerunner of slasher films and not really have a lot of supernatural elements. But we're not quite there yet. And so we're looking at a movie here that's kind of like a weird Venn diagram overlap of kind of trying to do the like gothic supernatural Hammer ripoff thing while also incorporating these influences from these German crime films that were starting to get really popular in the early 60s. And we're not really quite at a point where the Italian horror films have like developed their own identity really strongly yet. Lycanthropus was directed by Paolo Heusch, whose feature film debut had been La Morte Viene dallo Spazio in 1958. That's the day the sky exploded.
Oh, so very like firmly in genre.
Yes, that was Italy's first sci-fi film, which he co-directed with Mario Bava. This was his third film as a director, and he's credited here as Richard Benson as part of the standard Italian practice at the time of crediting their movies with English-sounding names.
Yes.
Lycanthropus was shot around Cinecittà Studios, which was a very large movie shooting complex in and around Rome. This was kind of, the 1960s are kind of like the height of the Italian film industry's like international phase. You know, you had the sword and sandal films like Hercules. You have, you know, the Giallo films haven't yet started, but they're coming. You're going to have the spaghetti westerns in a couple of years. And you've also got like the height of the Italian, like international art films, your Fellini films, that kind of stuff going on. So this is a really exciting time in the Italian film industry. And that really like fueled, you know, the use of this huge film studio, this Cinecittà soundstage and backlot. The movie stars Barbara Lass as our like main girl amongst the girls
in the dormitory.
Yeah. And Barbara Lass was born Barbara Kwiatkowska in 1940 in Nazi-occupied Poland. Her education was in ballet and acting, and she began appearing in Polish films in 1957. In 1959, she appeared in a short film whose English title was When Angels Fall. The director of that film became her first husband. She was his first wife, and this is Roman Polanski.
Okay, interesting.
And Roman Polanski's a director we're going to have to talk about more in the future. So I'm going to leave sort of talking about him to those future episodes rather than get too bogged down in it now. But Kwiatkowska and Polanski got married after they made When Angels Fall in 1959, and then they left Poland for the West for like better, you know, opportunities in their careers. Her name, Barbara Lass, is a stage name. And they were still married at the time that this film was made, but they were going to get divorced pretty soon after in 1962 due to Polanski's like numerous affairs. Our lead actor here is Carl Schell. He was the younger brother of popular German actors Maximilian and Maria Schell. And our werewolf is played by German actor Kurt Loewens, a Holocaust survivor born in Prussia in 1925. His family moved to Berlin when the Nazis came to power because they were finding it hard to get work in Poland at first, and they thought the big city would present more opportunities. This ended up meaning that they were unable to escape the country before Kristallnacht, and so he and his family went into hiding in the 1940s to avoid the camps, and he became part of a network that rescued 150 Jewish children from Germany during the Holocaust.
Nice.
He emigrated to the US in 1947 and became an actor. And his werewolf transformations in this film were shot in reverse. So they put all the makeup on first, and then they did their lapse dissolves by removing makeup rather than putting on.
That's a unique approach. Usually it's forward in time.
Yeah, we'll see how it looks, I guess, right?
Yeah, I'm very curious now.
As typical on an Italian production, the actors spoke a variety of languages on set, sort of knowing that they were going to be dubbed because Italian films don't really take on-set audio. So we have French actors, English actors, Italian actors, German actors, a whole mix. And Lycanthropus was released by Synopsis in Italy on November 9th, 1961, where it grossed 115 million lira. I have no idea if that's good or not.
Do you know what its budget was?
No, I don't have any other information. So, unfortunately, like with something like lira, like to get a sense of what that is in modern currency, like you're converting 1960s lira to like 1960s dollars and then converting that into modern money. I have no idea if that's any good or not. But upon release in the US in 1963, it was retitled to Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory, and the pop rock song The Ghoul in School was added to the credits, and the film was dubbed in English.
I hate when they add pop rock songs or whatever, but it really worked for like The Blob.
It worked one time for The Blob, and everyone keeps doing it since, trying to like hit that same note.
And also The Blob was like, what, 3-4 years ago now? So...
Oh, The Blob was more than that, I think, at this point. The English language dubbing was kind of like universally singled out in reviews of this movie as being terrible. Like the thing I saw over and over again in reviews was how bad the English language dubbing was. So I worked really hard to try and make sure we could watch this in Italian. The Italian is still a dub, right? Like this is something you need to understand if you're watching Italian films of this ilk, this era, but it's certainly going to be probably closer to the intentions of the original filmmakers than the English dub. Severin, the home video company, put out a Blu-ray of the uncut edition, which has the Italian track and the English language track as well. So that's kind of the source for what we're going to be watching today. Unfortunately, like online, the English dub version seems to be just like the most common, the easiest to find. It took me quite a long time to find us the Italian version to watch. So I'm very happy we'll at least be watching that so that we can give the film a fair shake.
Well, folks, hopefully you have a Ben in your life who can find these things. Otherwise, check out Severin for their release of it. You're going to hear a brief musical track, and when we come back, we will discuss Lycanthropus, aka Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory, from 1961, directed by Paolo Heusch,
aka Richard Benson. See you on the other side, everybody.
Welcome back to Scream Scene. We just finished watching Lycanthropus, aka Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory, from 1961, directed by Paolo Heusch. Ben, what do you think?
I think I liked this overall. Yeah. It's very twisty-turny, but that's the genre.
Yeah, I would describe this as being a meal with gothic flavors and Giallo garnish.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's not incorrect.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I think there are things that it could have done to tighten things up a bit. But overall, like, I don't know. If you can find it, I would recommend watching it. I enjoyed it.
So the story is a bit convoluted, as is the
nature of mysteries.
Yeah, for sure. Let's try and walk people through it.
Sure. So the film opens with Dr. Olcott arriving to the reformatory. He is going to be the new science professor. And we learned that he has something dark in his past that the reformatory director, whose name is Swift, is aware of, but he's not very concerned about it. Meanwhile, one of the students, I'll say, inmates, all the women here, who are quote unquote inmates, are guilty of some kind of crime, but instead of sending them to jail or to some kind of other kind of institute, they are here to be reformed because presumably like their crimes weren't so severe that they were like immediately needing to be locked up. That's kind of like the explanation we're given in the movie. And
it's, I think, important to note that this is a privately funded reformatory.
So one of the inmates, Mary, she sneaks out. Her sneaking out is witnessed by a character whose name is Priscilla, ? The subtitles kept saying her name was Priscilla, but clearly everyone saying her name were saying Broomhilda. But I'm just going to go with Priscilla because that's what the text said, and that's her name on like the Wikipedia character list. So just to try to like keep things as consistent as possible. So Priscilla sees that Mary sneaks out, and she also sees that one of the administrators, whose name is Leonore, is also sneaking about the institute at night. So Mary heads off to go meet a guy in the woods. This is apparently a regular thing that she does, as organized by the institute's caretaker, groundskeeper. His name is Walter. He looks like Peter Lorre, basically.
Yeah, like, I think it has to be on purpose.
I think so. She's been going out to meet this gentleman regularly, and we see it is Sir Alfred Whiteman, who is... I don't think he's the only funder of the institute, but he's clearly like the biggest. She's basically like, she's doing this for money, but she has all of these letters that he has sent her that she is now using to blackmail him to basically get an early release. However, as she heads back to the institute, after making this like claim and everything, we see that she is attacked and murdered by some kind of werewolf before she gets back to the institute. Thus begins the whodunit, where we follow Priscilla investigating what happened to Mary, who has done what, how far does this twisting tale lead.
Yeah, our main question is like, who is the werewolf? And it's really interesting to see a movie that like is otherwise kind of a proto-Giallo, but there's a werewolf, and the werewolf is sort of related to the plot, but also kind of not.
Yeah, no, there's multiple machinations going on here.
And there's just like, as you might expect in a movie of this nature, a lot of different characters who are here to just look sinister and suspicious because maybe they're the werewolf.
Priscilla's investigation starts with discovering one of these letters from Mary's unknown suitor. She approaches Walter about making some of that side money, meeting up with some guy in the woods. And when Priscilla goes to meet this man, she instead meets Sheena, who is Alfred's wife. Sheena says that she came here to confront Alfred's mistress, and she also says that she followed Alfred the night that Mary was murdered, and so she has a pretty good feeling about who the attacker is, but knows that it is not her husband. Adding to the mystery is that meeting between Sheena and Priscilla was seen by someone in the window, and later that evening, Sheena is killed in her house for it.
Not by a werewolf.
Not by a werewolf, in some sort of like injection. As Priscilla is walking back to the Institute, she herself is attacked by the monster. But the Institute's dog, whose name is Wolf, runs out and attacks the monster and kind of protects her. But it does cause some damage to the monster's right arm, which causes some of the local townsfolk and some of the inmates to suspect Walter because he looks like Peter Lorre and he has an arm disfigurement. So that everyone's like, well, it must have been Walter because his right arm is weird. It's like, he's been that way since birth, guys. It doesn't help that Walter has also still been sneaking around because Alfred has hired him to try to find these letters. Priscilla eventually learns that Dr. Alcott's past is being charged with homicide or manslaughter, something along that ilk, which we later learn is due to him studying lycanthropy elsewhere in the country. He explains to the director and his administrator, Leonore, that he was treating this patient who suffered from lycanthropy. And this is both in a that mental illness, you think you're becoming a wolf, but also, hey, she was actually becoming a bit of a werewolf-like creature. He explains that it's because of the pituitary gland reacting to moonlight, but then also because it's a little bit of stuff in your own head that it's kind of manifested in that way. And the pituitary gland causes the extra hair, the claws, the teeth, as well as amnesia. So you don't remember being a werewolf and attacking and killing. He had developed a cure using glands from a wolf, but during the second administration of the cure to this patient, who, by the way, he says, I was also in love with her, she overdosed and she died. And so he was held responsible. And then his mentor sent him out to this institute to be a professor. Now, like I said, Walter's been sneaking around, and at one point he sneaks into the girls' dormitory, finds the letters, but is caught. And so in his attempt to get away, he falls from a roof and dies. While that is being taken care of by the administration of okay, someone's died, we see that there are wolves trapped in the forest and being taken in and dissected by Leonore. She is dissecting these wolves to get their glands to follow the notes of what Dr. Alcott had laid out as a cure for lycanthropy. Just as Director Swift comes in as a werewolf, he gets chained up by Leonore, and then he turns back and we see the identity of the director. He reverts back because he gets that first dose, and Leonore and Swift are like, oh, we're so in love, and after this second dose, you'll be free of this horrible curse, and don't worry, you didn't kill anyone, and tonight, director, and let me get the second dose. We'll keep you chained up just in case anything goes wrong. And just as she's about to administer it, the second wolf breaks out and kills Leonore and runs off. So Swift is distraught. He's not cured because that second wolf got out, and he ultimately hides her body in the coffin for Walter and digs out a shallow grave for Walter. Now, Priscilla and Alcott, who she's kind of brought into the investigation about what happened to Mary, they confront Sir Alfred about these letters, and he's like, okay, let me just go upstairs and get my coat and we can talk this out. And he goes upstairs and kills himself. Back at the Institute, Priscilla is walking around at night. She has to tell the director about Sir Alfred killing himself. And that's when she sees Swift, and he turns, revealing that he is Werewolf Swift, and he attacks her. Alcott arrives in time, white shirt, buttoned down to the navel, very romance cover, and shoots Swift, having to shoot him multiple times because the movie forgets that it needs to end. And eventually Swift dies, but not before explaining the who, what, why of all of the mystery, including that he specifically requested Alcott be transferred to the Institute because of the lycanthropy research.
And Leonore killed Sheena.
Yeah, Leonore killed Sheena because Sheena knew that it was the director.
Right.
So that's the end.
Sarah, great job summarizing all of that. This movie has just
so many twists and turns.
A lot of stuff happening all the time, and you did a really good job of covering the main things and making them clear.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Yeah, I also, some of the ways that some things happen on screen aren't exactly the way that I explain it, but I feel like it makes more logical sense if I just end that thread before starting the other one. You know?
Yeah, totally.
So you can kind of see, well, obviously the Giallo influence here of the mystery and people being killed. Also, a lot of our figures who we don't see the faces of are wearing those signature black gloves. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Gothic flavors because the Institute is in this very old castle. And we have a bit of that like tragic romance vibe going on with Alcott and having a dark past, and will they, won't they, between Alcott and Priscilla. Priscilla being our main character, trying to find out this mystery. A lot of really interesting influences going on here.
Yeah, you've got Priscilla has this, like, all the characters have dark backstories, right? Like Priscilla has this whole thing where like she's in the reformatory because she like
attempted murder to defend herself and Mary from Mary's boyfriend who is trying to kill them.
Yeah. And like then there's the romance between Leonore and Swift. There's just like a lot of melodrama going on. I think this movie looked really good for a movie of this kind, like good cinematography, nice like camera work and shadows and things like that. I think the movie's got pretty decent performances.
Yeah.
Throughout for like melodrama of this kind. And I also think that like most Italian films of this vintage, everyone in it is very attractive. So that's a plus when watching it.
Even Walter?
Yeah, no. But like you get what I mean.
Yeah, no, I'm just ribbing you. And it's not as exploitation-y as I had feared.
Yeah, for sure, especially given the way it was like marketed in the States.
Yes. It's there was a movie that we had watched that was like Playgirls and the Vampire. I think its title is actually like The Ultimate Prey of the Vampire or something like that. That one was super exploitation-y. This is like very tame.
There's so little exploitation that when it does show up, it's like almost out of place.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, right.
Like there's one scene where Walter sneaks into the dorm to get the letters and all the women are sleeping. And there's just this like shot of like one woman in her bed kind of just like writhing in her sleep. And it's just like, we didn't really need that at all.
That was a little weird. And then like when they wake up as Walter is like running out, like some shots that were like, okay, that was a little gratuitous, but like nothing, no full frontal nudity or anything. And honestly, like it's in that one piece of the movie, like that one section, not really there any other time.
Yeah. This is definitely like a convoluted blackmail murder mystery story that just also happens to have a werewolf in it. And like I sort of said earlier, like the werewolf isn't actually part of the blackmail plot. It's just that like Mary happened to get killed by the werewolf and we don't know who the werewolf is. So the question becomes like, who is the werewolf and how are they related to the blackmail plot? But it is kind of funny to see like a movie that could have played without a werewolf and been basically the same movie.
Yeah.
But it just happens to have a werewolf in it. And that werewolf happens to have a love interest who's doing like mad science stuff to save him. And it just kind of feels like a weird genre blend.
Especially with the influence of the glands.
Right.
And it also, I mean, I was thinking about this because you brought up Edgar Wallace as an influence in the industry at this time. Those movies based off of Edgar Wallace's works are mysteries that are very heavy-handed at the end about explaining every little thing. And this movie does that.
Yes, absolutely. It's one thing when, so there's like a useless detective in this who's kind of, we didn't even mention in the plot summary because he doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But like, I bring him up because it's one thing when the detective explains everything at the end. It's quite another when the dying murderer with his dying breaths explains everything at the end. It gets a little ridiculous.
Especially because like he gets shot once and he stumbles around on that set. He gets shot again and he stumbles into another room, into another set. And then I think he gets shot a third time, and that's when he finally falls to the ground and then starts to explain the backstory. It's like, my guy, just fucking die. We got it. We don't need you to explain how you got out and killed Mary the first night because Leonore was delayed because she was avoiding Mary. Like, fuck, we got it. We fucking got it.
So I guess my question becomes, do we think this is horror enough to count, or is this just a like twisty-turny murder mystery movie that happens to have a werewolf in it?
I think it counts as a horror, not just because it has a werewolf, but I think like the attacks by the werewolf are pretty gruesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that Mary is killed, and the way that also her clothing is ripped, and the way her body is found, and the way people talk about her body after the autopsy. I feel like it's implied that there was some sexual violence.
If not implied, there's at least like sort of a flavor of it, I guess you could say.
That's what implied means.
What I guess what I mean is that like in monster movies, when monsters attack women, there is often kind of a flavor of sexual violence to it. And I feel like this movie is kind of somewhere lying in between, you know, the Creature from the Black Lagoon kind of thing, where it's like it's there as subtext and it becoming text. It never quite becomes text here, and I'm not even sure if it's strong enough to say that like they're implying something did happen, but there is a certain eroticism to how the women are being attacked. Although at the end of the day, even with like, this movie has a lot of blood from the werewolf goring people, but the werewolf still kills people by like choking them out like it's a movie from the 40s. And then after he kills Mary, he kind of tosses Mary over a bridge and her neck breaks, which was pretty wild.
Yeah. Like, I think there's enough here that it counts as horror, as well as the fact that it is drawing on these older horror influences, like the gothic stuff, like the, you're trapped here, you can't get out. How do you deal with that? And I think there's enough here.
It's so interesting to see this formula, because if this same movie was from the 30s or 40s, I think the werewolf would have been a phony, like Scooby-Doo style.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, oh, it was just a mask to try and scare people off, because actually the Institute was built on top of a pirate treasure or something. Like there would have been some other crazy shit going on there where people wanted money. Because it's the 60s, it's a real werewolf. But then because the rest of the movie is this like blackmail murder plot, they kind of wanted to keep the werewolf, I guess, more grounded, because it's not like a full blown like
mythic
magic is real, they transform into a wolf kind of thing. It's this like pseudoscience psychosomatic kind of werewolf. It's a bit of a weird fit, but what did you think about the werewolf in this movie?
We've seen it before of talking about glands and stuff, and the ties to man beasts, whether that beast be ape or wolf. Like it's very much in line with that. So there's nothing here that felt groundbreaking. The style of the makeup and everything, you kind of likened it to the vampires in Buffy.
Yeah, he's got like a crinkly angry forehead, and then like big fangs, and then like a 5 o'clock shadow, and then hairy hands with claws.
Yeah, they do enough that like you can't immediately clock who the werewolf is when you do see him attacking people, because you do get some like fairly clear shots. So I think that was good, and I think the makeup helps sell the idea of pituitary glands, because it's not like, oh, you're growing a snout. It's like subtle enough that like, okay, I can see, it ties in together.
Yeah, I would agree. It does a good job of like threading that needle where he has to change enough that people wouldn't recognize him, but not so much that it becomes unbelievable.
And if you were to just separate the werewolf from the blackmail stuff, I think the werewolf half works really well in line with the werewolf tropes of tragic ending. Mm-hmm. And everything. So I feel like it works really well there. The mystery side, I do just want to say, I realized this as I was writing everything down.
Yeah.
the mystery doesn't make sense.
No.
Because he's the director, Swift. He is supposed to have amnesia and not know what's going on. And so it's like, okay, well, Leonore knows because they are in a relationship. So maybe she explained it, and that's why they invited Olcott here to the Institute. But then why wouldn't they immediately be like, hey, Olcott, I have lycanthropy.
Yeah,
help
and
me.
Swift suspects Olcott of being the werewolf at one point.
But like, to be fair, it's because Mary's death isn't initially ruled murder by werewolf, you know? Like, they think she was literally torn apart by wolves because wolves have been an issue. But it's still like, it's enough that I'm like, if you yourself.
But if Swift asked Olcott to come here so that Olcott could cure Swift, then Swift would know that Olcott is not the werewolf because Swift is the werewolf.
Yes. So it's like, guys.
Yeah, it doesn't quite make sense. And it's definitely working too hard to make everyone suspicious, which brings me to a question I have. Was Swift who you thought the werewolf was going to turn out to be?
No, because he's so suspicious of everyone. Like, he is probably the most trusted administrator in the Institute for Priscilla. So I thought it was going to be Leonore. So I was looking forward to another instance of a lady werewolf.
I thought there was something suspicious going on with Leonore because...
Well, we see her sneaking around.
And she's got that kind of like that mystery story character problem of she's like prominent but doesn't seem to have a role in the narrative. But I was also really suspicious of there's this side character we haven't mentioned yet who's like another worker at the Institute who kind of looks like a weird skinny Casey Affleck kind of looking dude. And I thought maybe it was him because the build was kind of right for what the werewolf looks like when the makeup's on. But when it turned out to be like Leonore and Swift, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this kind of makes sense, sort of.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything else to say about this movie. Are you ready to move on to ranking?
Yeah. So I'll admit that because of the sort of genre blend in this movie, I found it hard to pick out a spot. But I do have like a pretty small range. I just don't know if it's in the right place.
Okay.
So when I was thinking about movies to compare this to, I thought about another European werewolf movie we've seen, Le Loup de Malveneur, which is a French film from the 40s, and also kind of has like similarities in the sense of a confined setting. It's all around this like one family's house that's kind of this isolated mansion, and there's some mystery stuff going on as well. I think I liked this better. I think this was a little more well-made, and I think I liked the werewolf here a bit more. So I made that film my floor. That film's ranked at number 151 currently. And looking up from there, I think that the sort of genre blend here, where this is kind of part horror movie, part mystery movie, meant that I didn't really feel comfortable ranking this above El Fantasma del Convento, which is at number 143, which I think is a better, like, pure ghost story. So that's my range, is 144 to 151. Pretty small little range here, roughly in the middle of the list, kind of, sort of.
Okay. Well, we'll have a discussion on our hands.
Okay.
So I didn't really know where to start with ranking this movie, so I want to call out a couple of waypoints here. In the beginning of the show, you talked about L'amante del vampiro, so that's the ballerina and the vampire. We covered that in episode 294. It's from 1960, so fairly recent to this, and it is ranked at number 73. The other movie that I also had in my brain as we sat down to watch this was L'ultima preda del vampiro, so Playgirl and the Vampires, also from 1960. Covered that in episode 310, and it is ranked at number 258. So pretty large range here. But I felt they were useful for waypoints for me. So looking at L'amante, that's at 73. And I was like, this movie, Lycanthropus, which, by the way, Lycanthropus, much better name
Than Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory?
Yes. Also
Yes.
like a bit more good for like description of the movie.
Sure.
Which makes sense because that's the intended one. Lycanthropus, I don't think really fits in the range of like around 73. That feels too high. As I started looking down, the other thing that caught my eye was The Return of Dracula, which is Dracula in the suburbs.
Right. Yeah.
And the reason that caught my eye is that's another like, let's try putting a vampire or a werewolf or some kind of folkloric creature in an unexpected situation. A little bit of a different genre. In the case of Lycanthropus, it's werewolf in Giallo. So I was like, okay, this maybe makes sense. I'm not sure. But I thought, above that is Misterios de Ultratumba, which was a Mexican film we saw recently. And it has like that really striking view of the gallows. And I was like, there's no such striking kind of visuals in Lycanthropus. So I knew that it wouldn't go above that. So I made 97 my ceiling. And as I looked down, it actually ended up being a little bit of a smaller range than I anticipated because E Vampiri is at 107. Now that's one of Bava's earliest movies. Technically, it's directed by a gentleman named Freda. It's from 1957. And it's, yes, a vampire, but it's based off of like Elizabeth Bathory. And like that movie is like good. It's ranked at number 107. But I kind of like Lycanthropus more. Kind of keeps the twists and turns going. I really liked the violence in Lycanthropus. So ultimately my range is 97 to 107. But that is much higher than yours. And I do hear what you're saying about the haunted convent. So what would be the midpoint between my floor and your ceiling?
So the midpoint between our two ranges would be 126, The Thing That Couldn't Die, which is just above Night of the Blood Beast and below Quatermass 2. And we've also, other movies we've got around here, there's Cult of the Cobra at 124 and Tormented at 128.
So The Thing That Couldn't Die, that's when they're on the ranch, right? And there's like...
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So similar feelings of like you're trapped in this place. I think Lycanthropus is better than that.
What about The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll at 130, which was the movie where Hyde is the attractive Lothario and Jekyll has a beard?
Yeah, like that was fine. I think I like Lycanthropus more.
I don't think it should go above Wasp Woman at 123, which is a Roger Corman movie that like isn't great, but it does have like themes. It's like about something.
Yeah, I don't think you could argue that Lycanthropus is about a theme or social issue. It's not trying to say something about prisons. It's not trying to say something about like women or like power. Like, it's just a fun ride.
Yeah, it could have gone somewhere interesting with talking about like, oh, these women are in prison for crimes that aren't really crimes, like how Priscilla's in prison because she defended Mary from like an attacker, right? And like, oh, women are the ones who have to like come together to defend each other or something, but it never goes anywhere with any of that. So I think it should go below Quatermass 2 because frankly, I just think the Quatermass movies...
They have a very good base level of good.
Yeah, of like competency,
yeah.
Right? So if you think this is better than The Thing That Couldn't Die, then I think this slots in at number 126.
Yeah, I think that spot makes sense. Let's do it.
Okay, so entering the list at the new number 126, it's Lycanthropus from 1961, directed by Paolo Heusch.
If you would like to see this list, you can go to our website, screamscenepodcast.com. There you can find links to the many episodes that we have mentioned today, as well as our appeals box. If you would like to contest this or any other ranking, you can drop us a line through our Ask box on Tumblr, or you can email us at screamscenepodcast@gmail.com.
Scream Scene updates every other Wednesday on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many other podcasting apps. You can make sure that you never miss an episode by subscribing to our RSS feed. You can help the show out by leaving us a rating or a review on the podcasting app of your choice, sharing the show on social media, telling folks about it IRL, or heading on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/screamscenepodcast, where you can become a patron of the night for as little as $1 a month. So that's patreon.com/screamscenepodcast if you want to check any of that out.
So, Ben, what are we watching next week?
Next week, Sarah, it's Hollywood A-movie time.
Oh.
With The Innocents, starring Deborah Kerr. It's an adaptation of the classic Gothic novel, The Turn of the Screw.
Yes. I have been wanting to see this for a long time and have not been able to because it's like, oh, but it'll be coming up on the podcast soon. I can't watch it for the first time, not relating to the podcast. Great. I'm excited.
So we will see you then, Creatures of the Night.
Bye.
Bye.